Now to our top stories. A man from Pittston is in custody after sheriff's deputies arrested him for several outstanding warrants. The Kennebec County Sheriff's Office says deputies and members of the U.S. Marshals Service found Nicholas Worthing last night. We're told the charges stem from Worthing not showing up to a sentencing hearing last year. He is being held at the Somerset County Correctional Facility. Deputies say he is facing additional charges from a separate incident when he allegedly smashed the roof of his neighbor's vehicle. A man from Portland is facing charges after police say he stabbed someone last night. According to Portland PD, an officer was patrolling near Portland and Hanover streets at about 10 p.m. when he found a man who had been stabbed in the back. Investigators say the victim was taken to the hospital but is expected to survive. A short time later, Patrick Brando was arrested in connection with the stabbing and for 5 outstanding warrants. According to the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry, the state has seen more than 300 wildfires so far this year, burning more than 200 acres of land. In response, local communities are developing wildfire preparedness plans to protect vulnerable areas like the Blue Hill Peninsula. Officials say assessments show limited water access can be a major barrier during wildfire response efforts. That's why communities there are working to expand the peninsula's water infrastructure.
We started an initiative here to start establishing water supply projects every 5 miles, and we've completed one of those. We're in the process of finishing another big one out on Newberry Neck, where we're installing a 15,000-gallon cistern out on Newberry Neck because there's no fresh water out there in Surrey.
The Forest Service says wildfire numbers are similar to this time last year. People living in Lewiston say they are tired of the gun violence their city has experienced recently. That's what dozens of guests said last night at an event focused on community conversation. It was organized by the Maine Wire. The event drew a crowd of about 100 people. Residents, political candidates, and local law enforcement talked about ways to curb the rise in violence, especially teen gun violence. The event comes within a week of 5 teens being charged with criminal conspiracy to commit murder. The Lewiston police chief says she hopes last night's conversation is not the last.
I think it's important for us to have conversations throughout the community, and I think there's strength in numbers, and I think we need to continue to do what we can as a community, come together and work together to quell this violence that we're seeing in the city of Lewiston, specifically with youth violence.
As for the next conversation, organizers said they're looking to hold a second event next month. New tonight, Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner is responding to a new investigative story about him and his ex-girlfriends published this afternoon by the New York Times. The article describes how 3 of the women, in the Times' words, found his behavior occasionally, quote, intimidating and disturbing. The most critical woman, Lindsay Fitfield, who says she dated Platner in Washington from 2013 to 2015, more than 10 years ago, told the Times Platner had regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks, once yanked her out of a taxi by her wrist, and another time twisted her arm behind her back and shoved her into a bedroom and held the door closed so she could not leave. The Times reported Platner strongly disputes any claims of physical intimidation or altercations. In a written statement to New CENTER Maine, Platner said, quote, "Throughout this campaign, I've been open about what was a very dark period of my life where I struggled with undiagnosed PTSD, too often self-medicated with alcohol, and was a far from perfect boyfriend. I take responsibility for all of that and wish I had been better. Any characterization beyond that is false and I believe politically motivated. I'm not proud of who I was then, but I am proud of the work I've done since and the movement we are building in Maine." As for the ex-girlfriend who described Platner's behavior we quoted, named Lindsay Fitfield, her campaign said, "Let's be very clear, this is a lifelong GOP operative who's dedicated her career to electing Republicans."